Hey, we're gonna get started here, guys.
Would you all pray with me? Dear Lord, thank you for all the blessings that you've bestowed on our community. Give us the wisdom to make good decisions at this meeting today that will benefit all the citizens in our community. And please look over our first responders, anyone who is assisting others on a day-to-day basis. And thank you again for everything that you do for our community and everything that you will do for our community going forward. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Join us for our pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. We have two sets of minutes to approve this morning. First one will be the July 11th regular meeting. I know that Mr. Boutin had found a typo in there. Was there anything else, David, that needed to be corrected?
Yeah, where it starts, the minutes of June 13th, down there towards the bottom of that paragraph, which is on page 1 of the July 11th minutes, it says, Mr. Boutin stated to add his explanation that they don't match up because they only had 4 reappointments, not a slate of 11 or 12. It probably would be more accurate if it said not out of 11 or 12 applicants. It's kind of a minor thing, but
Okay.
you know, I think the word slate there is not used correctly. Okay. And then let's see, that same minutes on page 3 at the very top, the second line there, it says municipal securities instead of securities, so it's just a typo.
Okay.
Could y'all not hear back there? Look, our system is on here.
I can hear it. Can you hear it? Is that any better? Here, okay, perfect, okay. So, any other corrections or amendments to the July 11th meeting other than the 2 items that Mr. Boutin brought forward?
Move for approval with those changes.
Second.
We got a motion and a second.
Second.
Dr. Kirk or Larry?
I did.
All those in favor of approving the June 11th meetings, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The June 11th meetings are approved. And then we have the meeting minutes for the July 25th special meeting, which was to approve the UTV payment. Any changes or amendments to that?
Move for approval.
Got a motion for approval from Mr. Boutin.
Second.
Second from Dr. Kirk. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. All right. Thank you very much. Got that done. We'll move into the contractor reports. Mr. Mansky, where did he go? He was here.
He's here. He's on a call. So
All right.
just texted him.
Well, if it's okay, I guess we could have a motion to suspend the rules right quick and we can move on into.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we got a motion to suspend the rules and move out of order. We got a second. All those in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So we'll move out of order. Christy Calicut.
Morning.
Morning.
On our monthly report, I'm going to move through this pretty quickly just so I can do a brief overview on the target industries analysis. Basically, in the month of July, our budget was increased back to the normal levels that we started with. We had reduced that for several months, waiting on the results of the target industry survey. So just a couple of call outs. In July, we saw that our paid views nearly doubled. Part of that is a result, I think, of the new campaign. The digital campaigns, we saw considerable growth in every campaign. With a call out to we have the new manufacturing, we kind of refreshed some of the creative and did some things there. And everything really just kind of outperformed the month before. A lot of that is simply budget. You know, we just had more dollars to work with on that. So I wanted to call those things out. Lead forensics, we continue to report the high visitation from the leads that we think are viable. So those are there, and we of course send those to the staff with the names of the companies and those types of things. One thing I think I mentioned, but I just wanted to call out, we did start a Workforce Wednesdays special section on for social that just started, I believe, the middle of July. So we'll continue to update that. Tips and things that we can do just to kind of continue that workforce effort. So it's small, but I wanted to call that out. Are there any questions or anything you want more information on the monthly report? Okay, go ahead and working on a Mac for that long. I'm trying to extend it. Can you guys see this okay if I work?
Yeah, that's fine,
Okay.
Chris, yeah.
If you'll click the X next to all tools, it should move that over a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Where it says, on the left-hand side there, it says all tools, and then there's a little X right there. If you'll click that, there we go.
Oh, yeah, I do this about twice a year and I forget, I'm sorry. So just to go back through the target industry analysis, this took several months. We engaged Golden Shovel, which they basically have a niche in economic development. They were wonderful. The lead person on here worked for the Financial Times. She did a lot of the research. We had a committee, I believe, of about 6 people working on the research for it. But they were very impressive. Still work with them. They're still sending thoughts and things after we paid for it. So I've been very impressed with them. So I just wanted to mention that. A couple of things that we did, the surveys, which we distributed to businesses and community leaders, that also went to our hospitals, our school district, our higher education, and then businesses, we tried to get a pretty good sample of different types of business. So that went on. Then they conducted one-on-one interviews. I know a couple of the people on the ODC board were interviewed, a couple of people on city council. We tried to get a little bit of the entire city in this research. Anyway, a wide array, analyzed, put it all together so that we give you this overview. And I think I mentioned that the overall report is 105 pages, and I've got a couple of things that goes way deeper. Tom emailed that to the board, I believe, in June. So I want to make sure everybody has that, and if you need a copy, we'll get it to you, because it's very interesting. It goes into the actual surveys, the actual interviews, and you'll get more of the background to it there. So just walking through. So we basically, again, research into the assets, the current ecosystem. They also research state programs, things that Odessa would align with incentives and things that are available through the state that would support the industries that they recommended. And then they identified the target industries that felt like Odessa could benefit the most from. And the ones that can sustain growth and that we can sustain as well. One thing that was interesting, and we knew this as they were doing it, they decided to compare us to other communities. And you'll see them listed there. I think the first 5 are, especially the first 4, no surprise. San Angelo is a little smaller, and so, but because of proximity, they put it in there. And Las Cruces was added because of some of the NAAQS codes and the things that, the industry that they had that kind of matched up with ours. So wanted to point that out. One thing, and this is hard to see here, but you'll notice this in the report later, under just one call out here, general construction. If you look at Odessa and the number of businesses by the NAAQS codes, we are way under all of the other ones, including the small ones. And I thought that was interesting. So I point that out. Manufacturing, of course, we lead, but I think there's some that we could be leading by more. But these are really interesting numbers to spend more time with, and so we're kind of looking at that as we're targeting and putting together our strategies. We're going into these a little bit deeper.
When we look at like general construction, did they give any insight as to why we may be low? I mean, because that's, you know, I see that both in general and heavy, and I would have thought particularly in heavy construction we'd be a little higher up on the food chain.
They didn't, because they thought we should. They really could not say why we don't have more businesses here to support that, because I think it's the next slide that you'll notice that with workers, I think it's on this one, maybe the next one too. It's the workforce, it's on the next slide, but you'll notice we have the workforce doing the jobs, but they're not doing it at the companies in Odessa. They're doing them in other places in some instances. So we have, in that particular one, that was kind of a call out. They just thought it was an anomaly, and they wondered why we didn't have more. They wondered why that was going out. And so you'll see that they put construction on the target industry list for that reason. They thought that we were underserved here and that it was an opportunity. So, but they really didn't have a reason as to why. They thought it was strange and that we should be, with as much as we're growing and building. Another thing that you'll notice here, and again, the numbers are small, professional services, and I think this came out of the Workforce Summit and some of the other things we've talked about, but the other place that we're underserved in Odessa is professional service companies. We have a lot of people, especially in the one-on-one interviews, that are even going out of the country, but definitely out of the city, for some of this professional support. So as we talk through that more, it's a little bit harder for us to market in a broad way to professional services, so we're gonna look at other ways to do that. But you'll see that show up on the list as well.
Is that a matter of, you know, because I think about some things I've heard come out of our school district, is that a matter of attraction, or is it a matter of what the school district has kind of found we must grow our own?
You know, I think a lot of it is the grow our own, for sure. You know, and I think some of the responses that came up were absolutely that. You've got to have the people that you train here and you keep them and you go on. But I don't think it's just that, because we still need the higher numbers. So I don't know if that answered.
Yeah, I was just wondering if maybe we might do a little follow-up with OC, you know, UTV in particular, to see, okay, hey, in accounting in these areas, these professional services, how many kids are we graduating? How many are staying here? If they're leaving, can we do, you know, maybe some exit survey type stuff to say, okay, you got your education here, but you're leaving to maybe move to a job in wherever it is. Why are you leaving?
Why, and then what can we be doing, or what is
Yeah, what can we do to
them?
keep you here?
Sure. And there is a little bit of that in the report, but it doesn't go deep. So, I think, you know, in particular, like UTPB, I think that they did one-on-one interviews with 2 people. Same with Odessa College. There's probably other departments and other things that are working on specifics that we can go deeper on that. So I'll make a note and check that out.
One thing that I'm seeing here is you know, we're way down in the number of businesses that are located in Odessa and construction. But you look at your total employees by major SIC code, we've got more, we're among the top of the list. We're almost up with Lubbock on total number of employees. So the employees live here.
Exactly. The employees live here and we're seeing them, but we don't have enough of the companies that are supporting that. So what it doesn't tell us is where are they? You know, and I think that that's what's interesting too. You know that they're in that industry, but you don't know which companies they're working for. So, some of this is correlation and making assumptions, but the fact that we were as far down as we were on construction in terms of businesses with that many employees, that's one of the other reasons that led them to put that on the list.
Christy, the work that you know we approved a fund for along with MDC for UTPB to do their gap analysis with regard to workforce and whatnot. Can that be folded in here, or I guess the intent would be to grab that information and enhance whatever is happening here, or to in some way, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I think when we have that, I think it'll be interesting to see, you know, I think there are a few things that as we go through it, like manufacturing, I think we all knew that going in, that was gonna end up on the target list. I think finding the things that we can learn from there, marrying it up with this, we'll need to take a really close look at that. And then we'll also need to see how it affects what we're doing in the marketing realm. There's some things that I mentioned last week, even though that they are even though Golden Shovel recommended these, there's some that I think we have some knowledge that we're putting more money into some than we are into others, just because we know what the return will be or we think will be. So yes, we'll absolutely dive into that. Without reading through all of these, a lot of these we've talked about. The survey overview, these were just some of the basic comments. You know, we have a strong medical system, we're hardworking, transportation is an asset, particularly with an international airport. One thing that kept coming up, this was in particular with one company that's actually received funding from ODC, but the geographic isolation is a real positive to a lot of people. Because they can kind of protect their property and their proprietary things. So a lot of companies like the fact that we are more isolated. Now, that goes back, you know, with transportation, with I-20 and everything else, those are always the things, you know, that rise to the top. A lot of this talks about our spirit and things like that as well. Quality of life came up quite a bit with different things, and the Golden Shovel even talks about how we can support those things very carefully, so we'll go into that as well. A little bit more about the process and going through this. We went through financial incentives, access to natural resources, a built-in customer base for lack of manufacturing and professional services here. We're already here. Insufficient number of established businesses and sectors creates immediate opportunity. And again, strong healthcare system. There's some specifics on here with numbers and research that go back to the report that some of the people that were surveyed and interviewed refer to. These are just some of the quotes. I'll just leave those up for a little bit without going through those. All of the quotes that Golden Shovel pulled from the interviews are in the actual proposal. And then these are the ones that came up last week. So in no particular order. And one thing that's also in the long report, there's a SWOT analysis on each of these that talks about how they got there, the strengths to it, the threats, all of those things. So I've got that with me, but there's more backup to why they chose what they chose. Renewable energy and renewable energy manufacturing. I think I mentioned this last week. So far, we've just started this. We were focusing just on manufacturing, and really more to say, you know, Odessa, Permian Basin is the hub. We always have been. We know and understand how to do it. This is just an extension of. So that's kind of where we're heading right now. Not much on just renewable energy, and I know we need to have a few more conversations with the board and staff on that before we go much further. Manufacturing. Since we've been working on this account, our manufacturing campaigns have far exceeded, you know, expectations. They're the ones that perform the best. We have a lot of interest in this field and always have, and have the people to do it. Professional services and construction, we've talked about those a little bit and why they're on here. So retail, what they did is number 6, and I've kind of taken this off. It's not retail to go after retail because we know we can't do that. But the things that can be done with infrastructure investments and things like that that make that growth possible, they're just saying to look into those, you know, areas a little more that'll fund the things that people, you'll see a couple quotes on here. People are asking for a Topgolf, and people are asking for things for their employees and more things to do. So it's more just infrastructure there. But I have not included number 6 in what we're targeting because that's very, very different. I think we have to be careful there with what you can and can't do. A little bit to the backup, and I'll combine renewable and manufacturing and renewable energy. A lot of this is based on our policies, things that are moving more toward renewable. Texas, I think, is leading the nation in that, so I think that that's interesting. I think that's on the next slide. A lot of this we're talking about, like if so much of what is being manufactured and put into the system, whether it's regular manufacturing or renewable, is coming from other countries. And so part of this is focusing on what can we do here, talking to people about securities that are in the United States that we can focus on. We're actually talking about some content that we can put out there that talk about why, you know, manufacturing here in the U.S. is more secure and why you should be doing more of it. So we're working on those kinds of things too.
I know in talking when Mickey was on the board, in his business, things like transformers, generators, all those kinds of things that kind of play into that whole energy infrastructure seem to be a real potential thing that we're not manufacturing enough of it in the States, period.
In the States, yeah.
And it's really damaging our grid and things like that, so.
And that's exactly right. So I think a lot of it too, even just the small sample that was interviewed and surveyed, the percentage, and I don't have the exact number, but there was a pretty high percentage of people here who are going overseas to have their parts manufactured. And if they had an option, they would do it here. So I think that there's an appetite for that, and we certainly have to do it. One thing in this realm too, with the manufacturing with renewable, they have a couple of charts in the report that show that the wages are higher for renewable manufacturing, even though it's basically the same process as regular. So sometimes I think you add that name to it and it increases the pay a little bit, which is interesting. Manufacturing, again, most of this we've talked about. The companies that are shipping different things across the country, operational delays, revenue loss, things that, since we're central, can obviously help that. I think it's just showing people how we can save money in that transit. Available sites, financial incentives, obviously make Odessa attractive. I think it's just, again, finding the companies that can benefit from that. One thing that came up too is 3D manufacturing. We have not really approached that yet. I need to understand that a little bit more before we really go after it, but that's one area that they thought was an opportunity as well. And sent us a few examples. They've even sent us a few businesses and things that they've seen success stories that we can kind of one thing I wanted to mention too, really on manufacturing, but I know medical came up last week. We have put, just in the past week, we kind of have a subsection on our targeting for medical. We did a couple of years ago, and I've looked at it. If you look at where some of the big manufacturers have landed, there are a ton that have located in Texas, mainly in the Katy area, some in San Antonio, some of those industrial areas. But I think that there's a real niche still for medical, even though it's not on this list. We have so much that we could be doing from here. So that's something that's kind of a subsection that we can always bump up as well. This is professional services. We talked about this a little bit, and finding ways to expand. There are a lot of people, again, going outside the region to hire support that they need. So I think matching that up to what we need and going after that one. This is just going to be a little bit different. We're not doing digital campaigns on this yet, or publication ads. I really kind of want to see how the others perform, because I think we have a better shot at those first, kind of learn from that, and then we'll kind of put together more of a sub-strategy on professional services as well. Construction, we covered this as well, but with the growth that's expected, residential and commercial construction companies are just going to be needed more and more to meet demand. So this is one that we just didn't think that we could go wrong with. But the fact that we had so many fewer firms, we need to look closer at that. We have not started marketing construction yet either. So that's one we need to dig into. And for budget purposes, we kind of didn't want to do everything at once in all the markets. We wanted to start with the ones, the top couple first, see how those perform, and then we'll move into these. And then again, just infrastructure. Some of the things that you guys are already doing, we'll just pay more attention to those things, and I think we just need to publicize more what's here. So we're looking at doing more PR next year to really talk about some of the growth and things like that that are there in the quality of life sector. These are just some of the sources, just so you can see at a glance. There's more in the full report, but just wanted you to know where some of this came from. That's the overview. Again, it's a long report. There's a lot more in the actual report that I'm having to refer to each time as we're placing something to kind of see what was said. So we're kind of using it as a roadmap. And again, with guidance from the board that just says, these are the areas we want to focus on. But right now, we are doing manufacturing and renewable energy manufacturing are the top two that we're focusing on the most.
And just to recap all that, Christy, I mean, our whole goal here was to really identify key industry sectors and then go down and drill into key people we want to go after, so that we're using more of a rifle than a shotgun in a lot of cases. Am I correct?
Absolutely, and I think for the marketing dollars that you're spending, I mean, for us, you know, I wanted more research to back up where we're spending our money, right? So that we can prove that there's return on that for you guys too. So yes, that's exactly why we went down that road, and I think it's something that constantly evolves, and I think we'll still look at the other NACS codes that are in the general development plan. We won't ignore those. We're just putting more focus on these for now. But I think it's something that we'll want to look at this and see what it's doing at least annually, if not by, twice a year.
Any questions for Christie? Okay.
I don't think so.
Like she said, everybody should have the full report. I'd also tell our city council members here, if you guys would like to see a full report, we'd be glad to send that out to council to let you guys review it. And all, there's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of data in there.
It's really interesting.
So they've done a pretty deep dive into it. So we want to make sure we're utilizing that to the very best effect for the money that we spend on getting all that research done. So. Thank you very much.
Christie, I had one question that just, when you were going through here and talking about some of the things that we've got underway, and I haven't looked at the website in depth lately, but are we showing any progress reports that the public Odessa citizens that put their money in can see, like the red iron on the Liberty Building or the concrete plant going up, or
So-
1.5?
Yes, so as we have things, like as we have a news release, as there are things published, we're doing a couple of things. So we're really writing new content to go on the website. We're in the process right now of doing an article that kind of explains the target industry analysis and summarizes it even more.
Right.
So that will probably go up next week. So we're doing things like that. As we have news, we're putting it on there in the news section, and then we're writing, for lack of a better word, I'm gonna use the word blogs, but we're writing articles that go on the website that go up pretty much monthly. As well. The other thing that we're doing is those things happen, we are sharing them on social media, we're boosting some of those shares, so we're trying to get it out that way. But specifically the concrete plant, no, we have not done anything.
Well, if you drive by there at night, they've got cranes lit up and lights, and when they had scaffolds, and I missed a few good pictures of it and came back, but it was cloudy. I took some, and they weren't as apparent, but it looked like was something from outer space. And then off the end of Priory Road, the Liberty, you know, it might answer questions about people, what they're looking at and where part of the money came from.
We've done an article on Liberty. I know that the staff sent out an e-blast on it as well, and I think there's some more things that we can do follow up there. They were so easy to work with. We have got access to their marketing team as well, so I think that they'll only help us do follow-ups on that. So.
Well, thank you.
I think Larry makes a great point there. I mean, I even wonder if we get some of the local media to, do little update stories on these big projects. And
So we haven't started it yet, but the proposal from Channel 9 that I mentioned last month, we're about to do that, and we're about to use them to do those things specifically, and then we can share those things on social as well. It kind of gives us an outlet to go have a news, a news story, but then we also have a little bit of control over that too.
and then I know we've talked about, and I'm not sure we made progress, the signage and things like that when we do these major projects to put, your tax dollars at work
Yes.
kind of.
We've got two sizes that we've designed, and I just haven't, I forgot to update the committee on this. So I have these, I need to get those printed, talk to the staff about keeping those so that when something goes up, then you're just putting it up on a fence or something like that. Right now, we're just doing banners, just because they're easier to put up there than the structures. But I have not printed them yet, I need to. But
Yeah,
I have them.
because I know even like on, and we've got later on our agenda, the Walkman, they're starting to break ground out there. So, on the Parks Belt project. So it'd be great if we could kind of track that, maybe do a little, once a month kind of deal, send somebody out with a camera and take a couple pictures and make sure we have signage out there and that we're letting people know, where they're, I think Larry made a great point, kind of letting people know where their dollars are being spent.
Absolutely. And that's part of what we're gonna do with Channel 9 is do some different segments. So anything like that, and if there's anything that you see or anything, shoot me an email or a call too, and I'll definitely put it on our radar.
Sure.
So,
All right.
all right.
Thank you very much, Christie.
Appreciate it.
And we'll flip back to, well, oh no, there's Tom. I was like, did Tom leave again? No, he's back there in the back. We'll flip back to economic development.
Morning.
See if this is on. Actually, I tried to escape, and y'all had somebody waiting on me at the first floor at the elevator door, and they made me come back up. So I'm back. So you'll find our report after the minutes and those items. There were some updates. Project Oasis, the first one listed, talked about that before, ancillary. They will be in town next week. They are meeting with 3 taxing entities. We set up those meetings for them. One of them actually will be in closed session at one of the taxing entities' meetings, and then the other 2 will be specifically with leadership from those entities. So that's moving forward. Project Texas Clean Energy also is moving forward. Had a great meeting a week ago now, a little over a week ago, with a Midland company to help us move that forward. Is with regards to a piece of property and potentially an investment in the project, because it appears that there might be some interest for them to participate. And they're a great company out of Midland. It would be very good to have them involved in it. The others, I won't go through everything on there. There's no immediate movement on everything. We keep reaching out. I'm hoping on page 2 of the Project Molecule, I'm hoping to hear something any day now with regards to, hey, we're going to break ground on such and such date. We just haven't heard from them yet. We'll mention a couple of things on the press. We're always trying to give good press to the things that y'all support for growth, and especially on the items you give grants to. I will tell you, working with Christy and her team, and it's been great to work with them. Sometimes I'm a little conservative and I pull back. A good example, you're going to discuss Rental King here later today in your meeting. I think she had a press release ready to go out announcing that project. Some things happened. It went to city council, and the reason I asked her to pull back on a couple of press releases is I reminded her that once y'all pass it, that's one thing. It still has to go to city council to get passed. And so usually I think it's just a safer bet to send any good pub out on items like that once city council has also approved it, and it's pretty much a done deal. And so once it gets to that point, that's when it's the good timing for that. Activity report, I do not have that today, but I will tell Mr. Harry that you will not have to wait till the next meeting. I just have to proof some things, and then either by end of day today or tomorrow, I'm going to just email that. It's not an item y'all vote on. It's just a status report on projects. And so there were a couple of things I meant to proof by the end of the day yesterday, didn't get to them, so I didn't want to bring that. Plus, it's kind of the index file on it is larger than printing it off on a regular sheet. So I figure y'all can have that in your email. Have any questions for me, you can certainly reach out to me, or if you want to wait till next month, you're certainly okay to do that. I was asked to report on Nacero. The letter did go from our attorney to Nacero, certified mail. The certified letter was returned unread or unsigned for, so I will make you aware of that. There was another letter that went standard mail, and it was not returned. And so make of it as you will. Some comments on the target industry, just listening to Christy, and yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, we still have contact information with Nacero. I mean,
I'm going to reach out to Hal today. I talked to our attorney yesterday. We've been kind of back and forth playing phone tag, and that's when he made me aware of the contact he'd had on it, because the letter came directly from his office and the response was directed to go back to him. And so I asked him what he'd heard. Now that I have that, I'm going to reach out to our contact and just, ask what's going on. Is there anything? And there was a request. I think I emailed y'all the letter last month per your request after the meeting. So there obviously was a request for return of the money on that first payment. And that has not been addressed yet. And to be honest with you, I'm not sitting back thinking it's going to happen anytime.
So Jeff Moore did send that request to Nacero?
I'm sorry?
Jeff Moore has sent that request for the return to Nacero?
For the return from Nacero? Yes,
Okay,
correct.
perfect. Okay.
Yeah. And it was part of the termination letter.
Default
So-
Yeah,
letter.
it just sounds odd to me that it was, the certified letter was returned, so there's something unusual happening there.
I wasn't shocked, to be honest. And I'm not saying it because of Nacero, I'm just saying I've seen it in the industry before under a similar situation. And so, so I wasn't shocked by that. I did want to mention some things on the Target Industry Report that they brought up, just so you know, because I know Christy and her team and our team have talked a little bit about it, and there's obviously continuing expansion discussion, and so there'll be more ideas coming to the table, but some things like construction, we were talking about construction, we don't, a lack of construction companies based here in Odessa. You know, we really haven't reached out, and we need to, but Odessa College has a new program, construction management. I don't even know if they've had it for a year, but we probably need to sit down with, we work very close with OC and UTPB, but we probably need to take the, and I say we will take it as your economic development staff team, sit down with their leadership and say, here's targets we're after. Can you help us with these? Because I think construction management's one. If they've got people going through that want to get into the construction management business, and they knew that maybe there's funding out there to help them get there with a company, or you know, if maybe not immediately, after some experience down the road, you know, we need to reach out and make that more available or more publicly known, and so that will be something we do with the Target Industry Report, is provide that to those institutions and go over it with them and ask them what questions or concerns they may have. Another thing I think I heard mentioned, that may have been you, Mr. Russell, was on the transformers. Yeah, you are correct. I reached out to a company that Mickey kind of directed me to, and we're trying to get a conversation started with them on manufacturing of those. I'm told there's an 18-month delay right now in transformers in the supply chain, and so certainly that's affecting energy availability, and so we are looking into that, and we want to address it. After the projects, your CRB&E report for last month was a little slow. Not as many visits. It's hard to get people in the summer. We're ready to get back into fall, both temperature-wise and being the ability to get a hold of people. So that'll come up. You'll see the economic indicators following that. We'll do want to tell you, I just happened to notice, and I don't know what the cause of it was, but for July, some of our social media as far as followers jumped up. Not a lot happening on X, formerly Twitter. I'm not on that very much. Not on any of these a whole lot, probably LinkedIn the most. But Facebook had 19 new followers in July. Instagram had 37 new followers. I'm told Instagram's kind of a younger crowd. And as I look at y'all are more, including myself, I'll put me in there, we're more of the Facebook crowd is what I'm told these days. So I like LinkedIn because I can check on a lot of professional things, and there's a lot of good stories and examples and ideas that you can get off of there. Let me see if I had anything else I wanted to mention on that. I think those were the main issues I wanted to bring up in my report today as far as movement on a couple of projects, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that y'all may have at this time.
Any questions? No. Thank you very
Okay.
much, Tom.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Walker.
Good morning to everybody.
Good morning.
I'll make this short and sweet. Second Thursdays are always the most hectic day of the month, so we got a lot of events going on today. I just wanted to kind of bring you up to speed to where we are. We are in the process of kind of pretty much trying to increase on what we're doing. one thing that I'd like to say is for some reason our social media and my more mature, younger, I'm in the mature stage, but they keep telling us they revamped our website, they revamped the Facebook page, some of the other words, what is it? I'm worse than Tom, probably. But they told us we saw a 17% increase. And I think a lot of this, we did a Mother's Day promotion where we did some floral arrangements, dinners for two. And I think people kind of thought we were going to give some of that away for Father's Day, but we didn't do anything for Father's Day, and that wasn't really cool, so we probably should have. I think a lot of we kind of do random promotional deals to kind of make sure that people are reading the information, and we'll stick things in there to see if they're noticing them. So we're just doing different promotional things. We're really proud that we're hosting our counseling sessions, and they're really going well. As a matter of fact, I met with a gentleman. His company is going to meet with Odessa College, and we're probably going to sit in on that to kind of help further their program and grow their program. So this is something we're very excited about. Today, if anybody has absolutely nothing else to do later, we will be boxing groceries. We will be putting together food boxes, clothing, and then tomorrow in 100-degree weather, we will probably be handing it out to families that are in need of this. And we were also able to assist a program this month in July, some at-risk kids, 60. We were able to sponsor the meals for them. So we also did our first annual bowling tournament. That was pretty interesting. I'm not a bowler, but it was really nice. Our attendance was good. That will be for our scholarship fund. We are still taking applications for our scholarships that we're going to give to some of our students here in the Permian Basin. So we helped sponsor the Woodson Boys and Girls Club, the Literacy Festival, which was probably attended somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,100 people. So I think they were able to give out 600 backpacks. So, and we just did an event here at our church as well when we passed out over 200 backpacks. So, and we were able to, one program we were involved in, we didn't know this existed. We have a lot of grandparents who are to the point they not necessarily want to, but they have to take and raise their grandchildren because something has something has altered their life, and their children may not be around, or they may be to the point where they're institutionalized. So these grandparents are taking their grandkids. So we were able to buy school supplies for them so that they didn't have to spend any of their hard-earned money, so they didn't have to take money that they use for their medication or for their bills. So we were able to kind of fill in the gap for that. So we were really happy that went well, and we were able to do this with the Black Chamber and with Walker's Photography and with some other organizations. So we were really happy that we could step in and take care of that. So that's pretty much where we are and where we're going. We're getting ready for our 34th annual Ebony Bar Awards. That's in October. So this being our 40th anniversary, we just want this year to be, really productive and let people see, hey, this is what we're doing. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Walker.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you guys do.
Oh, we try. Thank you.
UTB Small Business Development is in your packet. for review there, so we'll skip on over to Mr. Beecham.
All right, last time at your meeting, I said I would have some stuff for you for this meeting, Mr. Boutan. I did not realize it was going to be a week between meetings, so that kind of snuck up on me, but here we are. So at that last meeting, we talked a little bit about your leverage projects and some of the additional funding that was still out there, and about programming that. And then, of course, Melanie also asked about, kind of for budgeting purposes, what you might be looking at going forward. So keeping in mind that this is all very esoteric in nature for me, because these are decisions of other people, I would say this to you. That leveraging project has had really great results, and it looks great and easy and all that, but it's really pretty complicated. And the reason it's complicated is because any project in Midland and Odessa has got to go through the MPO. And there's a lot of entities at the MPO. And you're one of those entities from the city, so the city has to have buy-in for that. For that to move forward, you got to have the county on board. At some point, for there to be additional funding to come to the table, the district has to be willing to submit that as part of their UTP revision package. And then ultimately, you have to have people at the commission level who are funding those things to approve off on those as well, which comes back to our week-long period. So during this time period, the things that I'm going to talk to you about, we've also kind of run past our county leadership. We've run past Brooks Landgraf at the state level, someone who's talking to those commissioners on a very regular basis about things that, could be supportive here. And so all of that being said and done, we do have some of the stuff. This is back from July 2022. Some of y'all were here then, but this is kind of good background on the program, so I just included that for you. But this is really what we're going to talk about here. The first two maps in these are maps covering years 2023 to 2032, and then the next one is a map that covers 2033 to 2045. So this is going out about 20 years worth of projects. These are key projects in the Midland and Odessa area. And a lot of it here focuses on the loop in Odessa. That's an area where you've put a lot of money and leveraged a lot of projects already. You still have some that are out there on horizon, 52nd, 56th, and the 8th Street interchange in particular. When we originally approached and started talking to TxDOT on this, one of the things they came back with was, well, if you want to leverage some more projects, geez, we got a bunch of them out here on the interstate. And so our response back to them was, look, really the two things that we had tried to accomplish out of this program was bring additional funding to the table and move things up the ladder. The interstate is really a TxDOT project. You've already leveraged, as has Midland, on the Midkiff intersection, and you on the Faudree intersection of I-20, a little bit towards that. But the interstate's really a state project. They get a lot of money for that, and it's kind of counterproductive for you to be giving your local dollars to something that they're funding everywhere else. They agreed, said that's fine. So then we started going through the list from there. And again, kind of going back to what we had previously worked on, which is looking at Loop 338 and trying to make some progress there. There are a couple projects in particular in this UTP revision. We're adding the 87th overpass, and there is a section for a freeway upgrade on 338 from Yukon back up to North US 385. And essentially what that is, in this particular case, is taking your 4-lane divided roadway and adding those access roads to it. And ultimately that gets you what people in every survey on Loop 338 in Odessa have talked about, a Loop 338 that looks like a Loop 250 in Midland. And so if you look at those two projects that were added in this current UTP, they are fully funded. The problem is that if you actually look at the estimates of what was included in the UTP versus what was not, there's probably about a $17, $18 million gap on those two projects. So building the 87th Street overpass and then installing those frontage roads all the way up from Yukon to 385. That being said, probably the thing that I would encourage you to do, looking at your existing $3.5 million is potentially leveraging those. You know there's going to have to be about $18 million that goes into that, so a bunch of that's going to have to come from the commission, and they realize that. The other thing this does, though, is it helps bump that project up faster. You probably knock a couple years off of it. I think today, if nothing happens, it'll drag out a couple years over what's currently there, which is 2030. You move that project a little faster, but there's another important part to this. Once you install those frontage roads, the other two issues that you have are 100th Street and Grandview, where you're going to need overpasses. You can't build those overpasses until there are access roads because you have to divert the traffic to the access roads to do those. And so that project, even though it doesn't seem like that big of a thing, paves the way for them to go ahead and bump up those two projects, and that gets you your fully functional freeway design loop on Loop 338 all the way, essentially pretty much from the 191 standpoint up and around. So that's where we think that's probably a good investment of those funds in the short term. As you look at the long term, and this last page here,
James?
Yes, sir.
The two projects that you talked about, which, I see the 87th, that's RC 77?
RC 134 and RC
Okay,
77.
so it's both of those.
Those last two down there.
All right, got it. Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No problem. As you looked at the others, I'm suggesting you might want to look at roughly a $10 million allocation over the next 20 years. But if you want to do 8, if you want to do 5, if you want to do nothing, really, that's up to y'all. I just used an easy number that was less than what we had originally committed. It is spread over a significant period of time, but essentially where you're putting about $5 million on each side of Loop 338. And just to delineate that, you've got the 100th Street overpass in Grandview. On the other side, you have the upgrade of Yukon, West Yukon as an interchange, and then the upgrade to freeway over there. I don't think over there you'll really have to worry about many additional overpasses. I think having those frontage roads take care of those access issues there. You may ultimately have to have something in there, but at this point, it would get that up to a freeway design standard as well. And that gets you from over here at 302 all the way around. And so you're accomplishing that greater good of a developed loop. From an economic development standpoint, I would say a couple things too. If I looked at the west side of the loop, just from a truck and freight perspective, that's real easy. If I looked at that road and traffic counts, most traffic counts are down in Odessa today. If you look back 5 years to now, they're actually down. But that portion of the loop is up a little bit. It's about 5%. It's not a huge thing. But if you looked at traffic counts, and particularly those truck counts on that western portion of the loop, they're anywhere from over 25% to about 32%. And being in that 30% range over most of it is really pretty much akin to the interstate when you're looking at a truck percentage. So it's an industrial route, and that's what the city was doing with these investments over there, is let's divert trucks on the west side instead of through the middle of the downtown area. So kind of goes back to that end of it. So I think that's kind of a little bit of economic justification for you on that side. Also, when you add these access roads, you're adding a lot of property for development, because not every property can access that loop as it exists today. But once you have those access roads there, curb cuts, developments, entry exit points, get a lot easier. So there's that economic development aspect of it. But also on that east side, which is primarily and predominantly people, I would say this, because I think this is something very, very important for you to look at. That is a primary commuter route. There are a bunch of people that live there, and they're going to work every day. I bet Mr. Harry could tell you a little something about that. The most disturbing thing for Odessa from a transportation standpoint that I can tell you is your commuting time over the last 10 years has increased by over 10 minutes. Nobody else out here has seen that. All theirs have stayed roughly about the same. your commuting time, daily commute time for the average worker has gone up over 10 minutes. And it's probably in most cases today, we're probably looking at about 14 or 15 minutes. In another couple of years, that'll be up to about 20 minutes. Where that's particularly significant is at the get-go because of where we are, and I guess what would you said we were geographically isolated. You already started with a 20-minute commute time. And so in another 3 or 4 years, you're going to be a 40-minute commute time. And if you're wanting to compete in the world of economic development and you've got a time that's akin to somebody living in Dallas, that's not a selling point to the economic or the geographic isolationism. And so I think that's a significant part to this, and it's part of why it's good for us to have some other roads, and particularly a freeway design type of road that's helping facilitate some of that freight and commuter traffic. That being said, that's kind of what I have for you here. And
You said $10 million over what time frame?
well, those projects stretch from now till 2045, so essentially 20
years.
Yeah. And the hope is that most of those projects would get ready and go faster, and I think a lot of them would. But it,
And the most critical one being the 134 and the 77 to begin with.
I think he's actually talking about the unallocated additional, the $15 million, we allocated 11.5, and there's a $3.5 million that we didn't allocate, and I think he's talking about allocating that, making the decision to allocate that, and then doing an additional $10 million. Is that what you're saying?
yes, sir. Kind of based on what y'all asked me for last time. To your point, though, Mr. Russell, what I would say is I wouldn't necessarily say any of these projects is more important than the other. I think they all work together. They all have fairly similar weighting when you look at it from that perspective. So I wouldn't say one's more important than the other. The only reason that I would prioritize those first two, which is the freeway design from Yukon up to, or access roads up to 385, and then the, oh God, help me, the 87th overpass. I feel like Joe Biden in a debate. The reason I would say on those is because you've had that 15 million out here for a long time, and I know it's always the thing that comes up. We've got this 15 million, it's on the books, it's over here in the obligated category, and I'm assuming at some point you want to spend that down and get that obligation off the book unless you're planning on continuing the program. Those two projects are things that you'd be able to let or sign off on those agreements and move those things forward faster than the other things on this list, if that makes sense. So,
Those projects, according to this, are similar in cost. They're within $1 million too. Would you just basically take that $3.5 million, split it? I mean, if you're gonna allocate it, split it equally, 1.75 million or each? Does it make any difference?
I don't think it really does.
Okay.
Essentially, because those projects, even though there's two project numbers, and one is going to be for an overpass, and then one's going to be for the access or the access roads, what do you call them, going around frontage roads. They're really all part of the same project, and the same thing you're going to. So, and again, TxDOT views that, and the discussions I've had with them is kind of one point of work. There'll be multiple lettings there, but one thing they're trying to accomplish, because when they're looking at the gap on those projects, they're looking at a joint gap of roughly about $17.5 to $18 million. Yes, sir.
You mentioned MPO cooperation. Does that include consideration? And is the money maybe from us more important than the cooperation, or what would be the balance between MPO cooperation and more money?
It's all part of it. I don't know that I would necessarily say one or the other.
Would more money speed MPO up, encourage it, or would it
Well,
have any effect at all?
So once in the MPO ranking process, if you put local money towards a project, that gives additional weight to it. If you gave more money, that might make people look at it more seriously, but the weighting occurs when you put that money on it. Now, at the commission level, that's different. When they're talking about leveraging a project and they see you put $500,000 on something, and I'm going to say something, this may come out a little tacky, and don't shoot me, Dan. Some of your existing leverage projects that you did in the past, you just used to cover your local participation cost. It's what you did. So they were costs for right-of-way utility adjustments that you were already obligated to. In one case, y'all used it to bail out the county because the county didn't have their money on one of the projects. And so if you give $500,000 to a project to try to leverage it, and out of that they get like $43,000 actually towards the project because all the rest of it went to your local participation costs, that's not much of a selling point. But in the cases where you have a little bit more on there, and that's why normally most of the amounts I've looked at on here are probably $2 million or at least $1.5 million. So it's not, you're not being chinksy because again, at the MPO level, it's just putting something on there to get that weighting, but at the commission level, you're trying to get them to invest in it, and the more you're willing to invest, the easier that is, and the bigger amount you'll see from them.
You talked about a couple things there. You talked about commute times, and then you also talked about commercial traffic. When you kind of look across our community, where's our real pain point? I mean, is our commercial traffic leading to longer commute times, or is it lack of just available roads, or roads in the wrong spot, or I mean, what?
It really depends on where you look at. Look, if you ask people where the problem point is in Odessa, Texas, I promise you it's going to be somewhere on their daily commute. That's the thing you can always, it's the pothole that I have to drive over that will be the single greatest problem. If you look at the loop there, a tale of two loops, you got about a 20% increase on this side in traffic, which is huge, particularly when I'm telling you that most places traffic has dipped and it's coming back up, but it's still not at a high point. Your loop on the eastern side has had over 20% growth in traffic. That's the single greatest growth area here. It even eclipses Faudree and Yukon. That being said, truck traffic, it's probably about 14% over there. Now,
14% on the east?
yeah.
14% of the total?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, you know, if you're driving out there and you don't like driving with trucks, that's a lot. But it's not horrible like it is some places. Like I said, on the other side, you only had about a 5% increase in traffic. Still an increase, but you're looking at roughly around, average that out, about a 30% percentage of truck traffic. So it would just depend. I mean, both of those areas, Mr. Russell, have plenty of capacity. It's really that they don't have the operational things in place. And it'll give a good, for instance, and maybe Mr. Harry here could back me up on this. If I lived up around 100th to 87th and some of those developments there, and I was coming down 338 every day, it's not the fact that there's not enough lanes. It's the fact that they put me in a four-way damn stop sign for 2 years down to a damn single lane in each direction, where I spent 30, 40 minutes trying to get through that damn intersection. That would have been the problem.
That, and you've got a major residential section of Odessa that the main exit, and really the only exit for that, is either you go out on Andrews Highway or you go out onto the loop. And all of the traffic feeds one of those two, and probably 80% of it feeds the loop.
Now, the upside is you won't have that at other loop projects, like if you're looking at 87th and 100th, because at that point you're going to have access roads and you can divert traffic, so it makes this a little bit easier. But that being said, at the time, that's what you had. We were way behind. So hopefully it gets a little bit better. But at this point, that loop is really about getting to that more freeway design, free flow of traffic, higher rates of speed, less conflict points to move people. Whether that's people or freight. on either side.
Currently 87th Street, as we speak, you mentioned Grandview. Sometimes it's backing up several blocks the other side, blocking Grandview, where it comes back into it for the left turn at 87th Street. It's backing up a mile there sometimes.
No kidding.
That's even after they've extended
And-
the left turn lane by probably 500 yards. I mean, it's
Yeah,
still
they've
out,
made
it's
that
still out in
turn.
the middle of traffic.
Turn lane extremely long, but now it continues to back up on the shoulder all the way to Grandview and beyond.
Well, I hadn't heard that one before. I'm not saying, I literally hadn't heard about that one before, so.
I see it every day. I'm back to driving on Grandview instead and cutting Andrews Highway instead of 87th. And there's been a real pickup in wrecks the last month or two there, so people trying to beat traffic across with all that backup.
Is 87th there, is that the city? I know part of 87 in some places is, I think it's county, but
One side city, one side
87th is going to
county.
be city, I think at this point, pretty much from Andrews Highway all the way to, is going to be from Andrews Highway to Loop 338, that whole section will be city. When you cross over Andrews Highway going towards like Golder, that would be county.
okay. Well, most of Grandview 554 would be within the TxDOT system, so that might be the easier place to look. Sorry for the long report early in the morning. I'm sure that's not what you needed, a dose of this early in the morning.
This
but-
is great information, James.
But hopefully this is helpful. If you will notice from your 2022 report, what we are recommending to you today is exactly what we recommended to you back in July of that year as far as those additional projects for funding. So I think it's pretty consistent, and hopefully that will be helpful to you. Thank y'all.
Thank
Thank you, James.
City Administrative Services, financial reports. I think Kaylee's not here today. She sent a fill-in.
Yes, Matt McGee, Finance Controller. She had a family emergency. She wasn't able to get to the financial reports. She does apologize and said that she will have those next meeting. What she did want me to discuss was the budget. There was some, cleaning up that she did. Let me pass these around.
So aren't we going to discuss those items 8, 9, and 10?
Yes, when we go into our, so this is the budget. So we have no current financials. Those will come next meeting.
Yes, correct. She was not able to generate those before she left.
Refresh my memory, someone, how far did we, because we were up to date last meeting, right, through that meeting? So
Yes, we should be.
We're just talking about probably July's.
Yes, correct.
Because August probably won't be done yet.
No, sir. We've been staying on top of it though and trying to get it,
Okay, all right. Well, let's hang on to this. We'll call you back up here in a minute.
Okay. Yeah,
When
definitely.
we get to this as part of our development plan.
Yeah.
And all that. So we'll expect to have monthly financials for July and probably August next meeting. All right. Committee and officer reports, partnership has not met. Tax incentive, David?
We've got a meeting on the 16th to Michael Forrest, myself, and legal to look at revising basically the way that process is and the intent of the tax incentive committee, and to refine that more current way of looking at it.
Okay. So we'll get a report on that, I guess, next meeting. Advertising, I don't think we have anything to add beyond what Christie had. Again, just thank Current Media for their good work. And they stay right on top of everything. So grant review board, Larry?
No DOI, nothing going on.
Nothing there, okay. And then compliance, Has it met?
No compliance.
No compliance
No,
meetings on that. All right. I will remind everybody that this is a public meeting, and any member of the public may address the ODC board regarding any of its agenda items before or during the consideration of the item. With that, we'll go into item number 6, discuss and consider authorizing ODC to enter into an economic development agreement with Rental King LLC for the development of a new location in Odessa. Mr. Mansky.
If I can drag this out long enough, I'll come up here in a minute and say good afternoon. You'll find in your packet information on Rental King. This is an item that's been before the ODC board before. I'll just go through real quickly. This project came to the board through, well, it came to the EDD staff. We put the information in the matrix and did the things and got a compliance committee meeting organized. The project actually requested a specific amount the first time. Y'all are aware of that, $210,000. It came to ODC board after compliance approved that request for $210,000. ODC board then approved the request for that amount. At some point during that process, two things occurred that's how it was presented to us. One was the project was made aware that they qualified for more money than they had requested, and then the second item was that their bank now, after what was reported to us was a slower than normal first half of the year, or their first half of their fiscal year. The bank wanted more money than initially requested for their SBA loan, and so the amount was then requested to increase to $636,000, which is just slightly under, a hair under what they qualified for at the maximum level. So they came back with a new application. Compliance committee looked at that. They did approve that level, or excuse me, not approve it, but approved recommending it to y'all. It was then brought back again before this board. Y'all had talked about it and decided, well, nothing changed outside of the ask. And so you decided to stick with the approval of the first dollar amount. At that point, then it goes to City Council. City Council discussed it. I think there had been some outreach with regards to the project with City Council and why it would be beneficial to support the project at a higher level. But because the number was already approved, City Council couldn't raise that number. What they could do, though, is either lower it or kick it back to ODC. And so this would be the kickback to ODC to have it before you again to discuss. And we went ahead and put some of the application in your packet, which is unusual. We put the email from Chris Vore, who's with Rental King, kind of as a cover to that, to show you when we got that. And then we took out the payroll and the specific jobs and what they're paying. But this does entail closing down a Midland facility after building a new facility on I-20 here in Odessa. The location I believe they purchased. Well, they purchased the property. It's across the interstate from the Family Dollar Distribution Center.
And it is in the city of Odessa.
It's in the city of Odessa.
And because we covered general development last meeting or two meetings, and we thought we should identify that on our application. I noticed we've got a renewed application here, but it only mentions Midland. It doesn't put Ector County, which it's not in, or it doesn't identify the city on the application page.
I thought it did. Obviously, on his email cover, it has.
I looked because we had reviewed this point, and so I was curious if we could get that.
I know their current address is over in Midland, but we can provide and you could, considering this, you could say pending confirmation. But yeah, it's I believe it's right there in Odessa, directly across the interstate from Family Dollar, which also had, back in the day, received support from this group.
And one other point, you're talking about, you started your presentation with an awareness. Did you back that down and get it cured where whenever compliance is reviewing these things, that they pretty well technically stick what's on the table before them?
We haven't addressed that yet because they haven't had a meeting.
Okay.
But we will address it. We've had to, it's been hard getting people together. We've had to cancel 2 meetings in a row, with it being summer and everything. And because also there's discussion, I know the ODC board had mentioned it, discussion about addressing the matrix. We wanted to make sure that compliance committee leadership was available for that meeting, as well as a quorum of their membership. But yeah, that will be addressed. That, and I believe there was discussion about, let me, because it came from you, Mr. Boutin, there was an ask that you'd like to see removed from the application. I can't believe, maybe the specific dollar amount? Was that it? And so,
Yeah, I think it might make some sense just to take that out of the application and the compliance committee do its work and then make a proposal.
Either compliance develop it or they don't. Either the.
well, our recommendation to them, one, we're going to share the message that you mentioned that y'all want them to hear about, stick with the number. The other thing is that a recommendation has been made about removing that question, and I think compliance will support that. I've talked to 1 or 2 members, and that's been the indication. And I think that coming back as a recommendation from compliance to y'all to approve. And so I can see that happen. If not the August, or excuse me, the September ODC meeting, but certainly the October.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the impetus on the matrix came from the city council, not particularly us. We have it as a guideline, and it's nothing secret.
I could not tell you where the emphasis came from, to be honest, because it's been set that way certainly long before I got here. I do understand there was discussion and maybe a slight modification, maybe 5 to 10 years ago. Does that sound correct? Where they changed it on with regards to.
Referring to the last city council meeting where it was brought up there.
Oh, the discussion of the
Yes,
matrix was
yes.
brought up. Okay, I thought you meant the how it leans one way or the other. The current,
temporary impetus on it, and your mention of needing to review it or maybe change it. I don't think that was formatted with the board.
well, no, there was discussion a meeting or 2 ago from the board about looking at it, and I think it came up on this project. Heads are nodding.
It did.
So,
I do a lot of things, but I don't speak for the board unless the board has given me specific information to represent them on.
I understand.
So, I guess just a couple comments there. I don't understand not asking people what they're requesting instead of just telling them their max available. Some people may just not want or need that amount of money, and so, again, I'll look at it because, if we go with max request, I was looking back on some, like Liberty, like 1.5 and all that. Those 2 projects alone could have virtually, for what they maximum, according to the matrix. And again, the matrix is only a guideline. This is not a hard formula that has to be followed. It's something that's a worksheet that's kind of designed to get everybody pointed in the right direction. But those 2 projects alone could have virtually drained our reserves, because each one of those projects would have qualified for somewhere about $20 million according to the matrix. So I'm a little concerned and a little hesitant about that aspect of it. The other thing, and I'll just speak for me here. I went back and started going back through because I was kind of going, okay, where did the $600,000 number come from? Because we typically have not been provided as ODC members. We really haven't been provided with that information as to the calculations. Compliance comes forward with an amount, and we have typically followed their lead on that. Not always. There have been times, like with the Oryx, They actually went a little above the matrix, and then we kind of pulled it back. But I'm a little concerned about that aspect of it. And then I'm also concerned about, and to my chagrin, I went back and kind of started looking at past grants that we've done. I went back through board books and started looking at projects and what they did, FTEs and things like this. And you know, I was really a little bit, I guess, angry with myself, and that I couldn't tell you for sure as I kind of looked at numbers and, you know, capital improvements and jobs and retained jobs and all. You know, I had a hard time making sense of where those numbers came from. They didn't seem to kind of correlate cleanly with each other like I would have kind of expected. But I also couldn't tell you that we had a lot of detailed information as a board on where those numbers came from. And so that, you know, that kind of bothered me a little bit personally, that maybe I hadn't done as good a job in the past as maybe I should have in asking questions. You know, as I've kind of commented before to people, you know, when using public dollars, I always try to kind of apply a standard to myself of treating it a lot more carefully than I would even treat my own money. And you know, honestly look at these things going, I'm not sure if that was my money that we were investing in these things. I'm not 100% convinced that I would have made kind of come to the same conclusion. So, you know, I think as we look at the matrix, I'd also like to look at the reporting that goes to the board and show us some of the detail of, okay, how did we get to this number?
Well, I believe in the, it's an exhibit to the development plan, maybe. I'm looking over at Tina. And it breaks down the math on the jobs and the capital investment and the formula that's used. You might need an algebra degree, but it does give a breakdown in the notebook.
Yeah, but before we get too far along in this, let's understand, you know, the matrix was developed as we're talking about with its guidelines, and it's complex because most of the grant applications that we get are complex. You know, the quality of the jobs, the capital investment and whatnot. And what the compliance committee does is evaluate all of that, and you've got a lot of people in the room that are skilled in order to apply the matrix to that particular grant request. I think, you know, it's been understood for some time, I guess since it was developed, that it's basically a trade secret for the city, you know, Odessa Development Corporation and the city of Odessa. And the reason it's a trade secret is because we don't want to give up a competitive advantage to other communities. So I think we got to be a little bit careful in that regard, the way that we're looking at that. So when you go back and you try to, Jeff, if you go back and try to look at grants that have been approved and this doesn't make sense, well, it's because it's complicated, that you know, those jobs may not be as good as these, and you know, in the scope of the scope of things. I also think when you look at, and tell me if I'm wrong, Tom, but when you look at the number of applicants who basically stick a number in there arbitrarily with regard to what do they want, that's 20 to 30% of the time. The rest of the time, they're basically interacting with the Economic Development Department and through its dealings with the Compliance Committee. So the and if you just kind of look at averages, is somebody going to ask for more than they're going to qualify for or less? You know, it's probably the same. So maybe we're looking at 10 to 15% of the time, or are we going to have someone ask for less than what they qualify for? So are we leaving a lot of money on the table? I don't think so. Now we are. I mean, there is this philosophically changes the way that we've been doing things. But I don't think in the scheme of things that it's worth the debate over it. And going forward, then we're strictly utilizing those funds to incentivize businesses to expand here or relocate here, and so that's really what we're using them for. Now, the only qualifier that I have is I think we've got to be careful with regard to, are our funds necessary to make the project work? We've never taken the position that we want to do that. We want to make sure that our funds are strictly incentives for the expansion or relocation here. If our funds are critical to making it work, then it's too risky. So we got to be careful in that regard. But
I would agree with that for sure.
So let's make sure, again, from the Matrix perspective, that that's a trade secret from our perspective. We want to keep that confidential so that we don't have other communities using it against us.
And I'll mention on the process, I'm sorry.
I just tell him, good point.
On the reporting process, and it was, and this was, how it was presented to me when I got here new. Typically, we work with the client, we get everything packaged, we put the information in with the matrix, put together a lot of this. Trace will handle the compliance committee packet that goes to each member when they have their meeting, and we ask them to leave that information behind because we don't want, there's private information from the actual client in there about financials, even personal financials, and go back 3 years. Compliance reviews it. Many of y'all have sat in on their meetings, and you know that they take that role seriously, and they ask a lot of questions and things. Well, then ODC board, actually, I'll get out pretty good because they're doing the dirt work, and they filter projects on y'all's behalf, and then they come back with the recommendation, and that's why you don't. It's been put to me, that we didn't bring lengthy reports in the past to the board or at present because you rely on a good compliance committee job well done, for lack of a better term, for them to do their role, and then they come in and make an educated recommendation to the board.
Yeah, and at any time, any one of us can go back and request that. If it's coming to the board and you say, well, I don't really have enough information here, you can go back through Tom, you can go back through Peggy, the compliance committee, and you can get that detailed information.
And
I don't want to minimize the work that compliance has done, because I do realize the huge amount of time, effort, energy, expertise that they put into it. So I don't want anybody to get that impression. I think they serve a very, very valuable function, and it does protect our time as board members. So I kind of want to make that clear. I think that I'm not looking for these highly detailed things, but a good summary of how did we get to this number. When I look at in particular this one that's before us, Rental King, my real, as I kind of look at just the high level numbers, the amount of investment, the FTEs, I look at the payroll numbers that they stated, and their payroll number is pretty small. I mean, it's $275,000, 12 FTEs. I mean, that's only $23,000 per FTE. So I don't know really what weighting. I mean, that's pretty low, compared to a lot of projects we see. That's a pretty low average FTE number, and things like that. I felt very comfortable at the 210. I just don't know at this point how we got to the 620 or whatever it was. And the other concern that I really have here is, we're literally moving from Midland County to Ector County, and I'm wondering if any of those jobs are really going to move. The work location may move, but I have a feeling if those people live in Midland, they're still going to live in Midland and still buy groceries in Midland and go to the mall.
I did ask Chris that question, and he indicated to me that most of the people that would be moving over from the Midland location would be relocating to Odessa within like 2 years. So I can only assume he asked them.
Okay, that's another good nugget of information, because that was the other question I had. We don't often see those where they're just moving from, Midland County to Ector County. This one's been a little bit different in that regard.
They're not moving to Ector County. Oh, yes, they are. No,
Yep.
they're in Midland County. And
Still in
I was
Midland
asked-
County?
That was my question about
But the city of
limits.
Odessa?
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay, gotcha, Larry.
That location across from Family Dollar, that would be Ector
It's
County.
Ector County.
That is
Yeah,
Ector
It's in
County.
Ector County. It's across from
It's in
Family
Ector
Dollar.
County. I
It's
thought
on the
it
other
was-
side of the interstate, is
I
that
thought
where
on the
it is?
application it said Midland County. Or is it Midland city limits?
No, it's Ector.
No, they just list where they're currently at, which is Midland.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
So it's both Ector County and city of Odessa?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I feel, I guess I feel a little bit better if we really expect relocation to our city as opposed to just, change of business address, so.
Again, if that was the identified site was said to be in Odessa or Ector on the application or what came to us, it'd make it a lot easier, especially when we're trying to equivocate the difference between 210 and 670. I think it makes a huge difference in location. I mean, if they're moving 10 feet across the line to get, the money that's in a new building, and nothing's going to change in the traffic patterns of their employees. So that was the basis of my question.
Any other comments?
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
and I apologize, I didn't mean to interrupt, but they just left that off on the application on page 3, address of location. They did give the street proximity, because I know when we first got this project, it's a raw piece of land, and it didn't have an address, so they gave the approximate address. We were since able to get a legal description, and so that's probably why it wasn't
I
listed.
mean, it says 1210 and something else, or
It says I-20 and JBS Parkway.
oh, it does.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and we've had more than one project come to us where they just don't have the actual physical number yet because there's nothing there yet. But it's pretty easy by the time usually all the approvals start to come up to get that. And we require a legal description to be put in the EDA anyways. So.
I think just like Liberty, weren't they originally planning on what we thought they had one location and it wasn't in the city of Odessa, it was, or the county, but it was in the EJD.
ETJ?
Yeah, EDJ, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, actually Liberty's in the city of Odessa.
That was Downing.
Oh, Downing Well, Downing Well Service.
Down,
In the ETJ.
I
Yeah.
suppose,
To
yeah.
the city of Odessa.
Forgive my memory.
Mine's only good in the morning till about 10:30.
We got about 25 minutes.
I know. Yeah, y'all better rush this because I'm about to forget where I'm at. So,
All right. Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion on item number 6.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Dr. Kurt.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Harry. All those in favor signifying by saying aye.
Aye.
Those saying nay, nay. So it carries by a vote of
can I ask you a question?
4-1
You're approving it at
at the 6:20.
Or
or 6:36? Okay,
6:36,
okay, I just wanted
Sorry, yeah.
to make sure I was clear on that. Thank you.
Yeah, 6:36. So the 4-1 vote in favor of 6:36 to be sent to City Council for approval. All right. Next up is a revision or amendment to the EDA with Walkman Trading Company. You guys got that in your packet. There's also a printed copy on the dais, both red line and a clean copy. This is the Parks Bell Industrial Park statement. There's not a lot in here. There are some changes in some dates. That project is now underway, and they're breaking ground on it. We did move out a date at Mr. Bell's request to October 1st. because while they're starting to do some preliminary stuff, they got other stuff to get done, but we want to make sure he had plenty of time. It was originally set for July the 1st as kind of the commence date. We moved that out. He actually asked for September, I think. We moved it out to October just to give him a little extra time in case anything happens. The other thing is we adjusted the amount. It was originally at 8.5 million. He's got all of his bids in and all. We're looking at 6.5 million. So that's very beneficial. Again, coming a little bit under what was originally budgeted. And then we did pull off what was it, Addendum B, David?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exhibit B.
Exhibit B, which was kind of a line-by-line detail breakdown of all the work that was being done. The project's been defined, and what he's found is there's a few other little additions that he's having to do just as he goes by. Had to put up some fencing to keep people out of the site, some things like that. So we didn't want to tie his hands. We're really tying his hands to the $6.5 million to complete all that work that of the road, water, and sewer up in that area to extend that all the way to the industrial park.
And those costs that are eligible under the statute.
Yes.
You know, it's,
And
which
it
makes sense.
defined the size of the road, I think, is 5 lanes. I mean, that still stays the
Yes,
same.
still stays the same.
So-
Nothing's changed really in the specifications.
And I had one other comment on that, and we've got it maybe here for approval, but it still denotes Exhibit B on page 2 as if it exists. It has not been redlined.
It should have said, that should have been lined out.
Where's that at, Larry?
Top, second paragraph, page 2 of 18.
Are you looking on the red line version?
Yeah,
or the-
I'm looking on the red line.
I just see Exhibit A there.
Pardon?
Whereas on second whereas right here, Exhibit B.
Oh, okay, okay. So we need to red line
Need
that.
to, yeah.
North of the industrial park, we'll need to strike as further described in Exhibit B. So we'll need to strike that as well.
Which page are you looking at?
Yeah,
Also
as
says
further
right here.
described, qualified, I guess that whole line's gotta go.
You've also got, hereby referred to as qualified expenditures. You get qualified expenditures that's mentioned in the next
Yeah.
whereas as well.
Well, we need to keep it, I think, in that second whereas, because we can only pay for qualified expenditures.
Yeah.
But I think we do need to strike that last part of the,
Well, wait a minute. Well, there should be something that eliminates that Exhibit B. I don't know that, I mean, I'm thinking that this is really citing the previous agreement. Financial
well,
assistance
no,
provided.
this is a restated agreement, so we're basically ending up with a clean agreement. Let's see if it's in the clean version, if it got stricken.
It's there.
No, it's still there in the clean version as well, so.
See, I think, or I don't know from a legal perspective, but I think that the next paragraph, because the Exhibit B is not located in there, that that's where it's referring to. I think it's saying, I think the paragraph is saying previous agreement had the Exhibit B, now not. But I think we need to clarify that, Dan, if we can. Those two paragraphs need to make sure that we're not referring to an Exhibit B because it no longer exists.
Yeah, we'll get it back to Jeff Moore and let him.
So-
Okay, let them clean that up. Okay.
So assuming that, well, I mean, with the provision that we're not referring, the eligible expenses are in that second paragraph. That's all that's the description of the eligible expenses. And confirming that through the legal department, I would move for approval of this revised agreement.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kirk? or-
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Boutin to approve with that minor change, and getting that cleaned up, seconded by Dr. Kirk. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes 5-1. All right, we'll move on to.
Wait,
uh,
5-1?
5-0.
5-0, I'm sorry, 5-0. Thank you, Tim. Had to-
Sorry, I was
trying to use my
Grenade.
fingers there, make sure. Okay, item number 8, discuss, consider fiscal year 2024, 2025 contract agreements. We went over all of this in our workshop. You presented your binders then. David was the good one and brought all of his stuff with him. But we also, and City Finance may want to speak to this as well, we got the requested amendments, looks like laid out here in our little green sheeted handout. I do want to bring up one thing here, and Tom, you need to help me here. We do have one thing we need to talk about in the contractor agreements regarding our Whitley Penn contract for compliance reporting. Tom, you want to kind of come up and share that right quick, because we got a little bit of last minute info from them, and we need to share that with the board and include that in our contractor agreement.
Yeah, we got some information in from Whitley Penn. They haven't been approached yet about fiscal year 24-25 as far as their services to the ODC board. Essentially, what they did, they sent an email per conversation Jeff and I had with Roger Tovar with Whitley Penn. I made a copy of the email, and then behind it are a couple of pages. The only thing that really changes in the contract is the dates, obviously, and then the pricing per audit, per compliance audit, per project. There was an increase on that from $6,500 to $7,800, and so I brought that information for you. So if a new contract were, if you were to agree to a new contract with them, the thing that would change is we'd add the new, and you'll see it in this little packet I'm about to hand you. You'll see their exhibit from, it's actually the last page of it. It's the exhibit that was added for the services agreement last year with their pricing.
Okay.
And then just before that is the new exhibit, which lines out what their new pricing is, and they've indicated their costs have come up on these things and the
Did you hand
times
those
and
out,
everything.
Tom?
I'm going to give them out right now.
And we did talk to Whitley Penn, and we're kind of having a discussion too about how we might cut the cost. It's just taking them a lot of time by the time you back and forth with the grant recipient and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to kind of continue to have those conversations with them of how we might streamline it. Are there things that we can do? That's really that first email that you see there. They came back with us with some suggestions of how we kind of get this done in a more timely fashion, and also maybe a little bit easier on our grant recipients to be able to move it forward a little quicker. But like Tom said, they did ask for an increase. Tom, did I understand right that our contract with them is actually kind of lapsed right now? I know there was something in
Yeah, it has, I guess for lack of a better term, it has come to an end. So they actually have some work in progress that they're holding up to see where this goes. I thought they'd operated last year by letter of engagement, but it was more on the contract. I think they said they worked closely with Dan and his team to put that together. And so a lot of that email is just really kind of their processes, so it's not what would go into the contract per se. But right now there's, I know what kind of expedited this on my end, or our office, the EDD team's end, was one of our companies was asking about their compliance and where it's at, because they had provided all the information earlier. And so they were hoping to get that thing ended as soon as possible. And so, and that's Liberty. Their compliance, I think, was not far from being done, and now all of a sudden it's like we're off the clock and it's on hold.
Yeah. So we talked to them again about some things to streamline, potentially to cut the amount of hours needed to do it, to be a little kinder to our grant recipients along those lines by streamlining, and then Also, we talked about, basically ensuring that their bills get paid in a timely fashion. So we kind of talked about maybe improving the process there, the way they submit their bills, so that we make sure they get paid as they should. We've apparently lapsed a few times over 90 days and I didn't get into all the details of why that was, but we want to make sure they get paid properly. So the adjustment in the budget that we're looking at as a board is to go from 6,500 per compliance report to 7,800 for the coming year, and go ahead and approve that as a part of our proposed budget, so that we can go ahead and get that taken care of and keep them rolling. So
Can we call it a 17% late fee?
but any questions on the Whitley Penn part of it? Then we'll kick it back over to City Finance here to take us through our general development plan and budget.
The main thing that Kaylee wanted me to discuss was going to be the budget and the adjustments that she made. So in that packet that I gave you, it should be the last 2 pages. They're stapled together. A lot of this, she said that, it's previously been discussed. It's just kind of been some housekeeping items. Some of the big changes that she did make were the breakdowns of the business incentives and the capital infrastructure grants, also the downtown infrastructure grants. These were usually grouped into one line item. What Kaylee did was break it down to give everyone a better idea of, just a visual on what's going on and to make it a little more clearer. She has also wanted to discuss the way we are budgeting the business incentives. Typically, historically, what we have done is budgeted for the whole amount of the business incentives. I am under the impression that these are usually multi-year plans. So when we're doing our budget, we're taking current revenue, comparing it to, long-term incentives. At that point, accounting-wise, you're kind of looking apple to oranges. It is a good philosophy, though, because you are accounting for everything. But you can see on the second page of the budget, there are going to be some green boxes. So the green boxes are going to be where she broke down the incentives and kind of showed what would happen if we budgeted how we do historically and show the full incentive amount, or if we show the current portion that we're going to pay this year with the current revenue. So on the right side is going to be the breakdown of the incentives, the full incentive reserves. It's a 15.5 million. So you can see after you budget for that, you have 9.5 million left. Of that 15.5 million, she's saying only 3.2 of it is actually going to get paid this year. So if you budget current revenue with current expenses, at the end of it, you're going to have 21.7 million left over. So it's kind of a philosophy thing. It's kind of a, how do you want to look at it? In my eyes, they're both very great. I can appreciate both, points of view. Definitely, if you look at the left side, the side where you only budget, what your current expenses, and you do have 21 million left over, we're all business people. It's not say, hey, let's go out and spend 21 million. But the fact that it's there in case of an emergency is always great. But on the other side, where you do account for everything, it's a little easier to sleep at night knowing it's all budgeted, you're good to go. So that's one thing that she really needed to get approved for the budget so she can take it to council next Tuesday. The second part of the green boxes is kind of just where she broke out. Like I said, everything was under business incentives. She broke it out. The second part of the green boxes is going to be the capital infrastructure. Same concept. She kind of showed on the right side, if we went ahead and budgeted for the full expenses, what our total would be. And on the left side, if we budgeted for current expenses, what our bottom line would be.
I find that very helpful. I think that's a good, I like seeing both sides of it.
Yeah, definitely. And going forward too, even like next budget, I think it's something you should probably see every year,
Yes.
just to have a good understanding.
Yeah.
I looked at this just a little bit differently, and it looks like to me the numbers flow. If you take our beginning fund balance of 89 point, and these are round numbers because it's close enough, $89.6 million, and you add, and it, like I say, it's going to change just a little bit, but you take the budgeted income of 12.6, the budgeted expenses of 3.1, then you get an available reserves, if you will, of 99.1 million, so 99 million. And if you took all of our total grants committed at this point, like 31.7 million, which is on another sheet, and then you also take out the TxDOT commitment of 7 million. So that's $38.7 million that you're deducting from that. That leaves you an available 60.4 million. And the concept would be, this is an extremely conservative way to look at it, because all of those things, you know, a lot of that is going to be paid in future years and whatnot. But it clearly shows available $60.4 million this next year if we paid all of our commitments this next year. So, we talked about taking that $50,000 and dividing it by 2, 25 and 25. It's really closer to 60. And so I think bump that number up to $30 million. Take the capital infrastructure grants amount up to $30 million. And again, it's a guess as to, what projects are going to be requested of us from the city's perspective. How are we going to move forward with our TxDOT commitments and whatnot? But I'm very comfortable with the fact that we've still got $30 million plus all of the income that we're going to have in the future years, that's going to be paying a lot of those future year obligations. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to see us move that number up to that blue line up to $30 million, which is going to change the business incentives to $20 million.
Okay.
And we still have plenty, like I say, we're still, again, a very conservative way to look at this. And then let's assume that something comes up and we say, well, now we're going to overspend this or overspend that because there's some merit to it. We can amend the budget, but this is a good start. It gives us something to start with. And then pending, receipt of any request that we get from the city with regard to infrastructure, pending our discussion of what do we want to do with our TxDOT commitment, what do we want to do with James's suggestion, maybe looking at another $10 million over 20 years or whatever. So it gives us a good start.
So would you like to put that in the form of a motion?
Yeah, I would move to approve this budget, making the change, capital infrastructure grants, changing that number to $30 million and the business incentives to $20 million.
Second.
Second, Dr. Kirk. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the budget with that change signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0. Got the math right that time, Tim.
All right.
All right. So we have knocked out items number 9 and 10 with that discussion. We are now going to move into closed session.
And by virtue of doing this, did we approve the contractor agreements? I don't think
we didn't make a
did
motion on that. I think we just did
Oh,
the
and we may have
budget.
buzzed over that. We talked about that. Okay.
You need to go. We need to go through and do that.
Okay. Back up. I got it out of order there. So let's go back. Let's go back to number 8. These kind of all got tied together, and so sorry about that. Number 8 was discuss and consider fiscal year 2024-25 contractor agreements. Those again were presented at our budget workshop. I would move that we, or I'm looking for a motion to approve those with the, and including the Whitley 10
Motion to approve.
proposal.
Motion to approve.
So
Second.
Got a motion from Dr. Kirk, second from Mr. Harry. All those in, any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That is approved 5-0. And then we've got our general development plan, item number 9, removed from table, so I'll take a motion to
Make a motion to
remove it from table. Mr. Harry, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Kirk. All those in favor of removing it from the table?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? So we've removed it from the table, and now we'll consider approval of our 2024-25 general development plan as outlined in our budget workshop, and you've got a clean, updated copy that the city staff just provided, so.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Boutan, second by
Dr. Kurt.
Dr. Kirk. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed. That motion is 5-0. And we'll go ahead, just to be in good order, we'll do number 10, to approve and consider the fiscal year 2024-25 ODC budget with the amendment that Mr. Boutan proposed. Take a motion for that again, Mr. Boutan.
So moved.
Mr. Boutan, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Robinson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries 5-0. All right, now we get to number 11. The board may recess into executive session in compliance with section 551.001 of the Texas Government Code in accordance with section, and we will be going into executive in section 551.071, consultation with attorney, section 551.072, and 551.087. Can I have a motion to move into executive session?
Make a motion.
Mr. Harry makes the motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Kirk. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0. It is 10:27 and we will go into executive session. Motion by Mr. Harry, seconded by Mr. Butan. All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries. We did not take any action and will not be taking any action as a result of the executive session. So we'll move on into number 13, citizens' comments on non-agenda items. Do we have any citizens' comments? All right. So no citizens' comments. We'll discuss future dates for future ODC board meetings. Looks like we're scheduled for September the 12th
All
at
right.
8:30. Is that?
Can we, all right, I know Melanie wants to change the time
Okay.
back. If, to two, it's a lot more convenient for her.
Okay.
We can do that.
Let me look at my calendar just to make sure. that-
We can do that.
Me too. Because he just had to take a meeting somewhere else.
Okay.
Let me double check real quick. I'm sorry, I didn't look at that before.
Everybody good with
Yeah, yeah.
September 12th?
Yep,
Okay.
Yep.
So we're going to move back to 2 p.m. Darn it.
I suppose that works.
It takes up the day.
Morning's better, but that's fine. Okay, so 2 p.m., September the 12th, 2024. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move.
Moved by Dr. Kerr. Second,
I'll second.
Mr. Harry, and all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
I'm for